So, hi, I'm Jennifer Ramsay. I'm originally from Scotland and live in Spain. And I'm a storyteller and I'm also a psychotherapist. I work with expressive arts, I work with ecotherapy and psychodrama. And I love bringing them all together and making a kind of story medicine. And so I really hope that someone here today will take something away from this story. I should say that it is an interactive session, and I would invite you to have paper and something to write and draw with. If you don't like drawing, you can just write, and if you don't like writing, you can just draw. And that could just be a pencil or a pen or just whatever. And just to actually get into the story, I would ask you just to write in the chat one of your favorite fruits. And let's see what fruit comes up from all the different nationalities that are here. Mango. Yeah. Apple. Let's see, there's one more. Uh-huh. Blueberries. Well, Bruce, that is also one of my favorite fruits, and it's the fruit that will be in our story today. And we also have jackfruit. But perhaps I'm going to tell you a little bit about this story just before we get into it. So it's from a little island in Scotland. The island is called Skye. Has anyone here ever been to Skye? Because the landscape is really important in this story. And oh, so someone has been to Skye. I don't know if you'd either like to tell us on the audio or in the chat just a few words that would sort of describe the landscape, because it's not just any landscape. And I know that in the festival there has been some work around stories and landscape. And if not, I'll just tell you some sort of keywords to know what it's like.
Yeah, Jennifer, for me, I loved Isle of Skye because they say the legend says that one can experience in the landscape because it's quite a mixed bag. You have the ocean, you have the plateau, you have the mountains, you have the lush green rolling hills. So it's quite a mix. And the legend says that in one particular day, you can actually experience six seasons. So I we were not so lucky to experience six seasons, but we experienced four. So it was so hot, and then it started raining, and then it started actually snow fell. It was super, super crazy. And then after some time, everything was so good. It felt like spring. So we experienced four, not all six. And it's an amazing place. I would love to go back.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing. So, everything you said is totally true about Skye. I actually spent a weekend there, but I can't really tell you what it looked like because it was just like foggy all the time. But I do know from friends that it really is a very beautiful island. So, like the seascape's beautiful, lots of seals. The mountains are, the Cuillins are really rugged and dangerous, which is important for today's story. And then there's like the fairy glen and the fairy pool. So it's like a really sort of like magical place. It's a place where lots of like legends have happened. They say that in these mountains, the Cuillins, that the giants used to fight. So, and then there's all the wildlife as well. There's sea eagles and well, lots of really interesting wildlife. But I think that's all you need really just to get into the story. And it was actually from a collection of tales from Skye, because it does have a lot of its own folklore. So I'll perhaps write that in at the end, the name of the person who put it in the collection. And it's a favourite story with lots of Scottish storytellers. So I mean, basically the story's always the same, but the storytellers give their little, different flavours to it. I heard this story, I think, over 20 years ago from David Campbell in Edinburgh and totally fell in love with it. But for some reason have waited all this time to give it some life. So I hope that you're ready for the story. Yeah? So let's get into it. Now, please just have a piece of paper and a pen or pencil, whatever ready, because when we finish this story, I will invite you to do an activity and it'll go straight in. So let's travel in time and space to Scotland, to a little island called Skye. And in that island, there were a group of girls. And they were really excited because they were going to spend the morning picking blueberries. So off they went, they were singing, they were chatting, they were joking. It was just going to be such a lovely morning. But one of those girls was a little bit more serious. She had her basket and she really wanted to find the biggest, juiciest blueberries. She loved blueberries. Her whole family loved blueberries. So when they got just to the shadow, the foothills of the Collins, she started picking the berries immediately. But the biggest, juicier berries just always seemed to be a little bit further up. So she'd pick more and more and go a little bit further up and pick more and more and more and more and more until her basket was full. Wow, she was so excited. She turned round to tell her friends, but her friends were not there. She found that she was actually in the mountains themselves, the Cuillins, and her friends were nowhere to be seen. Now, she felt really nervous, really anxious, because from childhood she'd heard stories, scary stories about those mountains, about giants fighting, about witchcraft, about people going up them and never coming back. And all of a sudden, there she was on her own in those mountains. And then she started thinking, do the giants still live there? And witches and wolves? But then it got even worse because this thick, thick, thick fog came and totally engulfed her. She couldn't even see her hand in front of her face. And she just didn't know what to do. What would you do? Would you stay there? Would you try and find your way back down? Well, she just didn't know what to do. She thought, now, if I do go down, I could just easily stumble, fall off the mountains, fall into a gorge. Oh my goodness, what will I do? And if I stay here, I could, die of the cold. Something might come and eat me. And that's when she realized that two little eyes were staring at her. No, 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 not two eyes. 4, 6, 8, 12. All around her, there were lots and lots of eyes. And then noses and mouths, and she realized they were deer. She let out a sigh of relief. Somehow she felt comfortable, comforted. She wasn't alone anymore. She was with deer. And they came a little bit closer to her. And just all of a sudden, they all turned in the same direction as if they'd heard something. And then they started walking in that direction. And she found herself walking with them. She walked and walked up and down and round along lots of different mountain tracks. And eventually, after who knows how long, she saw the entrance to a cave. And there seemed to be a faint light coming out of the cave. So she got a little bit closer And she peeked in, and she could see there was a little fire, a pool, and there were two like stone chairs. And on the stone chairs, there was an old man and an old woman, and they were not moving. They were still as stone, and they looked as old as the mountain itself. She waited, and one of the deer, the lead deer, went in and whispered something in that old woman's ear. And she looked up and stared at the girl. And very slowly she got up and started to walk towards the girl. The girl sort of showed her basket. I got lost. I was looking for blueberries and please, take the blueberries. But can I please spend the night here? Hmm. The woman very slowly yet again walked back to the old man and she whispered in his ear. And he gave a very faint nod. The woman came back and said, no, you cannot spend the night here, but you can spend 1 year and one night. Oh, the girl listened, and inside she just felt this was the right thing to do. So she said, okay, I'll stay for 1 year and one night. And that old woman was happy. She said, yeah, I really need someone to help me with the work. So the next morning, she got up and off they went, looking for herbs in the mountain. And that's what they did every morning, go out and look for herbs. And in the afternoon, the deer would come and they would milk the deer. They'd put the milk in a bucket, they'd mix it in with the herbs, and then they would take the bucket to that old man. And in the evening, the old man would look into the pool and he would just pick some, so with the milk, the deer milk and the herbs, they made a kind of soft cheese and it's called, what's it called? I'll tell you in a minute, I've forgotten. It's a soft cheese you only find in Scotland. And so they'd make the soft cheese and they'd go back. And he would sit there with his bucket, look into the pool, and he would take out this soft cheese and he would just make little shapes with the cheese. Over and over again, little shapes with that soft cheese. And then at night, he would hold up his hand and birds, one by one, would flow in and take away the little shapes. Sometimes it was this hand, sometimes it was this hand, but it was always birds coming in one at a time and flying away. Now, that girl was very curious, but she didn't really want to ask too many questions. But one day, the old woman said, listen, I have to tell you, what that old man is making is dreams. We are dream makers. And that pool, that is the pool of life. Now, if he holds up his right hand and has a shape, well, these are all the positive, lovely dreams about romance, about adventure, and the birds that come will be like eagles, halkins, and they take the dreams away and they share it with the people who need those dreams. And in the other hand, the left hand, well, these shapes are nightmares. They talk of horrible things, of tragedies, of battles, of bloodshed, and the birds that come are crows and ravens. They come in and take those nightmares away to their destiny. Well, That girl was actually really quite happy there. She learnt so much from the women about the herbs, um, about milking deer, about making the cheese. And in the evening, she just loved just to sit and watch that old man, that dream maker, just make the dream, stare into the pool of life. She too would try and look in, but she never really saw what that old man could see. And time went by, weeks, months, and finally, a year and a day had gone by. And the old woman said, "It is time. It is time for you to go. But please know, your work has not been in vain. A reward is waiting for you." Okay? The deer will lead the way. So sadly, she said goodbye to the old man, to the old lady, and off she went, following the deer. She went down and up and round all these ancient mountain tracks until finally they arrived at a kind of a bay, a beach. And she didn't quite understand. She thought, I thought I was going home, but I don't live here. I think I live at the other side of the island. But the deer were sort of like nudging her and they kept looking out to sea. So she turned and she looked out to sea as well. And there in the far, far distance, she could see a tiny, tiny little boat. And that tiny little boat kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until finally the boat arrived. And in that boat was a handsome young man, a prince. He had a heavy gold chain around his neck. And when he saw her, his eyes filled with tears. And he jumped out the boat and he said, "I can't believe I found you. I have been searching for you for 1 year and 1 day. In my dreams, I have totally fallen in love with you. And I would ask you if you would consider to be my bride, to be my princess." Well, for her, it was love at first sight. She agreed. They got in a little boat and they sailed off together to his kingdom. In time, they say that she became the queen and that all loved her, not just because she was kind and generous and a queen, but because she also taught them the meanings of dreams. And that is my story from Scotland, the Dream Makers. And I'd like to invite you, perhaps if it feels comfortable, just to close your eyes and perhaps replay the story a little in your head and just let one scene come to you. The first scene that comes, just let it come to you. And when that scene is present, I would like to invite you just to sort of step into the scene with all your senses, in your imagination, obviously. What does it smell like? What sounds can you hear? Smell, touch, is it cold? Just walk around the scene. How do you feel? Mhm. Yeah, the cheese is called Crowdy. Crowdy, feel free to taste it if that's what's in your scene. Mm. And when you feel that that scene is quite solid I would ask you to draw a quick sketch of the scene. We're not looking for a work of art, we're just looking for a quick sketch of the scene. And I'm going to give you 6 minutes to sketch the scene. Have a look, we have relief. Yeah, I felt that as well. Mm, mm. The Pool of Dreams. That could be a lovely title for a story, couldn't it? The Pool of Dreams. What now? Mhm. Now, I'm wondering if anyone would be willing to share um, what came up for them. Like we could talk. If you've got your camera off, you don't have to put it on. It could just be with the audio. And if you do have your camera on, it'd be lovely to see you. And if you wanted to share your picture, that would be great as well. Let's see if anyone would be willing to share. Mhm. Yeah, Aileen. Yeah,
Eileen.
Eileen. Sorry.
It's
Let's
okay. So I love the beginning of this story, and these are the eyes, of the deer.
Mhm.
And when I was drawing the eyes, I started laughing. I felt like it was funny to draw these eyes and how she must have been so surprised to be so fearful and then to see the eyes of the deer.
Oh, and did you write the relief? Was that you that wrote the title?
Yeah, I wrote it in the center.
Ah, yeah, I can see it. I can see it. Yeah, there's certainly a lot of eyes there. And so, how do you feel? Does your body actually feel relief?
I think so. I think that was a process of like the image. It was the process, which was beautiful. It was the closing my eyes and then having the eyes pop up one by one, just as you beautifully told. And then I was delightful to draw. I forget that I enjoy sketching and drawing.
Mm.
And then you asked for the emotion, and that was the emotion that I felt. So it was a beautiful process that I came to throughout
Oh,
it.
that's good. Sometimes I find, but not always. Sometimes I find that perhaps it connects to something in my life. I was worried about something, and then perhaps just I caught someone's eye, and it just made me feel relief. Does it connect to anything? You don't have to tell us if it's something personal, but just something for
Oh.
reflection.
What also popped out to me in the beginning was she heard the stories and she was afraid. And there's so many stories that cause so much fear. And I try really hard to tamp that down and reset my perspective. And the work is in the resetting, and that changes how I walk around the world day to day. And so I think that the reset, there's relief in the reset at night.
Mhm.
And if there's too much going on outside of me or within me, to do the work and then have that sense of the work is worth it because of the peace and the relief that comes from it.
Mm. Lovely. It's almost like an inner eye, isn't it, looking in?
Oh,
Thank you.
yes.
How do I get the pin off? Not quite sure. Oh, thank you. I think Eric did it. Thank you so much for sharing. Really. Yeah. So, June, I see you'd like to share as well.
Yes, I had a similar scene on the mountain, but prior to her knowing it's deer. So mine is a little bit sinister. So I've got those barren rocks. She's left the lushness, and now she's up where the big boulders are. And I've got the boulders saying, beware, go back.
Oh.
And I've got little shrubs of blueberries still hanging on here and there, drawing her up and saying, pick me, pick me. And then I've got her holding the basket really tight in front of her, almost as protection for
Uh,
herself, but also not to spill the berries. This is what she's been doing all day. And now the fog has moved in, and all she's seeing are the eyes. And that's my title was What Now?
okay. Wow, you really, really described the scene, didn't you? Like the barren rocks, the lushness has been left behind, and yeah. And how are you feeling around that? How does it make you feel?
Uh, well, she's almost thinking, who's coming to help? Or do I have to do this on my own? So there's a quandary there. She's not sure what way this is going to turn out for her.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
so
Well,
she's
so what
standing
now?
there trying to make a plan.
Yeah. And does that resonate with you in anywhere? Like sometimes there's
Oh,
these
I
moments
think
in our
I
life.
oh sure, I think it does because often in my childhood, I'd be in a situation knowing maybe no help was coming. And my mother was off working and nobody else was around. So, what now and what's the plan?
Yeah, yeah. So there is
Yeah,
lushness, or there has been lushness, but all of a sudden there's a moment which is
yeah.
barren,
It
even though you've
turns
got a basket of blueberries.
almost like the weather on Sky. It can
Yes.
turn on a dime.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it'd be difficult to to compete with that. That really is.
Yeah.
Oh,
Anyway,
but
yeah.
thank you for sharing. And do you
You're
like
welcome.
blueberries?
I do. One of our favorites.
Oh, thank you very much, Jen. Thank you. Okay, thank you. And we've got Rachel. Rachel, and
Okay, just a second. Um, I too chose that same scene
oh wow.
and totally frozen, paralyzed. I can't move, don't know where I am, what to do, can't see my way to safety, literally what to take or not take. The deer are a comfort, support. I don't know what those eyes are, yet there is something that feels like it could offer a safety. And when I was drawing, I'm sitting at my desk with a container of magic markers. And so I just pulled whatever colors I happened to pick out. So the girl is in sort of a magenta with a stick figure, and I gave her curly hair, lots of hair. But at first, she didn't have a face. And I drew, she was holding a pail full of blueberries. And when I was in sixth grade, I went to my aunt's in the mountains and we picked blueberries. So that was very vivid. And then there were just little circles for eyes. They were just pen eyes, and there were lots of them. And I thought about, well, those eyes are so close to her, you didn't give room for the bodies of the deer, but that didn't matter. And the fog that came in was this light purple because my gray magic marker is downstairs. Um, and then I wanted the sense of a forest. So I added trees, and that ruined the fog. So I added more bushes, and it was all, I don't think you can see color much here. It was all
Uh-huh.
green and messed up. And she's standing on top of the mountain, and the mountain is not sketched in. And so I was amused by the contrast between this sense of paralysis that resonated so deeply and the playfulness of the colors
Oh, lovely.
of the magic marker, and how normally I would want to sketch something that looked like a real woman and a real girl, because I usually like to draw, but this was just very symbolic, just very stick figure and very reduced to its elements. And then at some point, I heard Ellen's, June say, "What now?" And it was perfect for me because that's what her question was. What now? And I, I usually have a hard time coming up with titles for poems that I write or stories. So this was lost, paralyzed in time, space, reality, past, future, in all dimensions of self and being.
Wow.
And I related to a time in my life where I felt that way. And I'm now, this is 50 years later. So that has resolved. And in your story, I knew what the resolution was. But I was so rooted in this moment of paralysis. But in reality, I know that the story ends happily. She's able to move, she moves forward, even though she doesn't know why she's being pulled to go to the ship. Her destiny unfolds, and it's a good one.
Oh, lovely. Wow. How are you feeling now? Because you seem to have been through quite a lot of things like different dimensions, paralysis, playfulness. What's the
Well, I'm glad I summarized to you the positive, because when we first started speaking, I was still rooted in that freeze and that. But in talking, as you say, I'm calling up a lot of other things.
oh, I mean, I
And
hope
I'm
it.
also seeing June smiling, and I have the gallery view, so that brings me much more into the present.
Oh, lovely, lovely. I'm really happy to hear that because, well, I mean, we're not doing psychodrama today, but sometimes when you do go into a scene and let you really embody it, and if you also have other people to embody other elements, then it can be healing. I'm not saying it always is, I'm just saying it can be healing. So,
And it's been helpful to me to hear the other dimensions that everybody else has brought to the scene, because I did, as the way June described it, I did see it that, visually and viscerally and sensual and with all the senses, but I didn't put that into my writing.
because also at the part, I mean, if you're totally frozen, then the senses freeze as well. But luckily you were able to bring that playfulness, which can help a lot. Oh God, thank you so much for sharing that. Isn't it amazing that the three scenes that have been shared so far have all been the same scene? Because I wasn't aware that I put special emphasis on this scene. But let's see if there's other scenes waiting to come up as well. And although they're very similar scenes, they're all very different. They resonate very differently, don't they? Would anyone else like to share? So I see we've got
Priyanka, did you
Aparna.
want to say something? Priyanka? Your
Yeah.
hand was up, but now it's gone. Aparna?
Yeah, Aparna's got her hand up. Yeah.
Yeah, hi. Hi, yeah, great activity. I love doing it. Went back to a different time, an earlier time. So, well, for me, the two almost simultaneously came together. Two scenes. One of them was the old man and the old woman sitting in the cave, and that stuck. But even before that, I think very simply, I had the scene of the girl looking into the sea and finding that boat. So that was really what called out to me, and this is what I've drawn. I don't know if you can make out. Yeah, so there's just a boat, and then there's a girl who's looking at and then there's deer around her, and there's a man sitting there on the boat. She can make out that there's somebody sitting there. So really, the word that I've written is curiosity and sense of wonderment, and also a sense of what's in store as she sees the boat coming towards her. And I think that was really the scene that stuck, especially possibly because of the words that you used, because you you got it closer and closer, and I was stuck in that moment where you were getting closer, and I too was curious in terms of what's in store. She spent a year and a day, and then what next? So, and I had a good sense of what might happen. So the boat was really a harbinger of good tidings, and I think that's what spoke to me. So
Yeah.
as simple as that.
In your drawing, did you know it was a prince, or you just knew something positive was going to happen?
Well, you broke the news to us, but the thing that stuck was when the boat was really far away and she's just seeing it. So it's actually
Ah,
just a figure in what
yeah,
I've drawn. So that's the picture that stuck to me.
yeah.
Just a little bit of the unknown and a little bit of wonderment
Hmm.
about what's coming on next. Yeah.
Hmm. And does that feel any resonation at the moment in your life, past or present or future?
There are things that, yeah, even in my personal life, we're at a place where we do need to figure out certain things in terms of where we're going to move and settle and so forth. So some things are going on. Maybe that is uh,
Mm,
surfacing. Maybe that is something that that's probably the reason why it's stuck. What is firming up is something that we still need to figure out.
mm.
And maybe that was speaking to me.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, there have
Okay.
been two more titles suggested in the chat section.
Uh-huh.
Um, can you read them, Jennifer, or should
Yeah.
I?
I can only see one girl learning life lessons.
Mhm.
Is there
And
another one?
Daisy also posted a drawing there for a little bit here, and I blew it up here. Just a second. Daisy, this is your drawing. Do you want to say anything about it?
Yeah. Um, I my mind got stuck on the scene when the little girl is watching the old man doing something in the pool and making cheese. And in one, is a lesson she's learning, and experiences that are new to her. And this man quietly goes on doing the cheese making. So she's filled with wonder. There's patience shown by the old man. He's focusing. So it's a serene, quiet scene. There are birds flying around. This resonates with me in the sense my father uh, was an activist, and he had done quite a lot of things of which I never knew. I've observed him, and it's only now that I get to know uh, what challenges he has faced, and what a great legacy I have as an he was an activist in Sri Lanka working on caste issues. So yeah, I think I got stuck in that. Thank you.
And so when I'm just thinking, so your father was an activist, and when you were younger, you were watching that happening?
Yeah, but I didn't internalize the whole thing. Like
Hmm.
I didn't know what challenges he was facing. I
Hmm.
didn't think it was a great thing. But until one researcher found his work and started, he contacted me and told me this is what your father was. And yeah, I don't know why I didn't know all these things. So it all comes back to me. Like I was watching him, he was doing something great, good, and I didn't know about it. So for me, it's a matter of discovery now and
Hmm.
admiration for him. Yeah.
Hmm. I'm just thinking about one of the words you brought up, patience, because I certainly know where I live in Spain and also in Scotland, it's time is very sort of like precious. It's what you produce. And there she was for like a year and a night. And every day was just like gathering herbs, milking the deer, and watching the man, the old man, make the dreams. And for me, it gives me this sense of, I mean, it just brought it to me in your image, just watching, observing, being, not doing all the time. And that's one of the things this story brings to me, because in the story world, we talk a lot about a year in a day. Just this idea, especially if you've gone through all the different seasons, whether it's the weather seasons, whether it's different parts of seasons of life, but like to go through the different seasons and one more day just to get that experience and the observation. So that's what I take away from this story, just that patience and just being and enjoying the more simple things in life. Mm. Thank you for sharing, Daisy. Okay. Sorry, there's another one. Dream is a sister of death. Oh, wow. Dream is a sister of death. Do you want to say anything about that, or shall we pass on to something else? Uh, uh, no, it's not. That's it.
Okay. Yeah, this is my title. Yeah, so if I can, I would love to share the drawing, which is resonating completely what you have just said, that this is about peace, about routine, simple things, very simple things. And we used to go to the mountains to pick up blackberries with my mother-in-law because it was their tradition, and my kids. And so it was in the forest, in the mountains, and when you said this, there's a couple sitting on the stone, I automatically drew Shiva and Parvati, because last time I was making the illustration to the imagery. So immediately they came to my mind, and then I was thinking why. And I think the easiest, the simplest explanation for this is to the message is just try to go beyond the routine, the simple, the simplicity of life. Try to imagine, try to go further, try to invite some spiritual beings that makes this moment more useful, or more, I don't know, creative, or more meaningful. Okay, so I was thinking that maybe this is the idea. And in Poland, we always say, and we have so many lullabies that are connected to the song of, for the lullaby is a song for sleep, but it's also the song connected to death. And in old, very old lullabies, it resembles like that. So it's also very interesting.
Oh, wow. Isn't that interesting, eh? It's the song for sleep and for death. Very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yes.
Oh, well, thank you very much for sharing.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, really, really appreciate it, because I think that's just the treasure, isn't it? When you've got a story, it's just when you actually put it on pause and then just share around it, how multi-layered it can be. Because this is really quite a simple story, isn't it? But it's resonated in lots of different ways. So yeah, really appreciate the sharing. Now, there's a couple of other things we could do. One thing is, well, for me, what it touched me is, what do you do when you get lost in life? Well, it could be lost in life in lots of different ways, can't it? It can be lost in life where you don't quite know where to go, or you go for a walk and the fog comes. But I just wondered, can you connect with a moment where you have felt lost? Or perhaps just leave you to digest that for a few seconds. A moment in your life when you've just felt lost. It could be now, or another point. And where did the help come from? And I'm just going to leave you a few moments, maybe like 4 minutes, just to do some automatic writing. When I was lost and what happened. And again, be very aware of any sensations, emotions, anything this might be bringing up. One more minute. Mhm. And perhaps find a way to close this, if that feels right. Maybe you need another minute or two. And if you are finished, I would invite you to read through what you've written and just underline anything that happens to jump out or surprise you in any way. So I'll give you another minute to do that and hopefully find a title if possible. One more minute. And again, would it be possible to write the titles in the chat? Again, just to get a little sense of what's come up around this. Mm. Signpost. I like that. When you get lost, a signpost. Too many balls in the air. Oh, June, I'd love you to share that one. Okay. Now, I wonder if anyone would like to share about what came up. If we were a bigger group, then I would offer the opportunity to put people in little breakout rooms. But I mean, we're such a small group, then if anyone feels like sharing, it would be lovely to hear that. Because being lost in those mountains, the fog, all the scary stories she'd been told, and then just help coming from the more than human world. Because often I think of help, I think of like, like someone coming to rescue me in the mountain. It's always a person, or when the car breaks down, which is more my things that happen to me. But the more than human world, if we just put things on pause and we just stop and stop trying to do all the time, what happens? We're part of the web of life, aren't we? So that scene really, really touched me just because it's just like I'm part of the web of life, and they really genuinely seemed to want to help that girl, didn't they? So, anyone like to share around their experience about just being lost and help coming? Rachel? Mhm.
Okay. Oops. When I was at the university, I was lost, and I didn't know what my future would be. I didn't know what path to take. I went to sleep, and I had an image of myself on a bed, sort of like the kind of bed for a CAT scan, that would, I was being pulled forward on this bed into the future. I did not know what this future would be, but I felt at peace. There would be a future, things would work out. That feeling of groundedness is a memory that I've called up on a number of times in my life when I have felt turmoil and when life or my future felt in jeopardy. And so the idea that groundedness was in me, and life was showing me that there was a force beyond me that was penetrating me. So I don't have a satisfying title.
No, but your image is very clear, and it came up in your dream, so it came from the dream world.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's a really rich thing to share, isn't it? In terms of, well, sometimes, especially when I'm working on a story and I'm not quite sure how to shape the story, if I go to bed sort of thinking about the story, sometimes the answer comes in the dream. It sort of opens up the pathway, which isn't as strong as what you were mentioning, but just how the dream world can also help us find like surrender as well, isn't it? That moment where you stop. Hmm.
And it was a very strong physical sense of groundedness
Mhm.
that I did not have in the outside daily life.
Wow.
And I've captured that memory. It has stayed with me.
Yeah, lovely. Um, I have a similar memory. It didn't come up in a dream, But it's just like when I'm really like nervous or whatever, it's just like, why don't I just go and stand beside a tree or hug a tree or just connect with a tree? And it's just that idea, I feel grounded. Like just get outside, put the computer off, get outside and have a little walk and just like, touch nature. So although it's a different way, but for me, that's how I get my groundedness. And I need to remember to do it. It's just like get up and out. You've got a dog, go for a walk. But we should really write it on our fridge or something, shouldn't we? Like touch a tree, hug a tree.
Yeah, hug a tree.
Yeah. So thank you very much for sharing that. Finding groundedness in a dream is very special, isn't it? Feeling more grounded in the dream than you do in the real life. Oh, mm. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else like to share before we go on to our last activity? Yes, Daisy?
Yeah. There's one time in my life when I wanted a change of career. We was running a hospital, and I just felt that I need to have a more focused uh, uh, life, work. So I visited another state, and that was in at the time when HIV/AIDS was a major problem, and there was I was just walking around, and one HIV positive man came up to me with a abscess, area of yeah, swollen with pus, and he was having a lot of pain. Nobody was touching him. I knew that I can easily do an incision and relieve his pain. But then, because this HIV factor was there, nobody was helping him. So I felt at that moment that this is something that I can take up. This man with that problem made me realize that there is something I can contribute in that area and work against discrimination, help people medically. So, yeah, that gave me a sense of purpose, and it helped to build some work there. I really treasure that period. Thank
That's
you.
beautiful. So offering your help is all of a sudden it's where, so instead of waiting for someone to come and help you, it was when you felt that you wanted to help someone. That is lovely.
Yeah, and this man was there to kind of tell me, come do this, that, motivating me. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Hmm. Well, I was just thinking of also what Rachel said about feeling grounded. I think it was it the Buddha when he was like on his path of illumination, and then I think it was the last test when he almost like gave up, and then what he did is he touched the earth 3 times, and I think he became Buddha. I'm sorry if I've got the details wrong, but I know there's something around touching the earth 3 times, this thing of grounding, the importance, whether it's earth or whether it's another way, but it's grounding for you. Thank you very much. So perhaps just go on to the last little exercise for this story. Well, also I was thinking, I don't know if you have mountains near where you live, but often I go for a walk in the mountains and I don't like really take any precautions. Once I went up the highest mountain in Scotland, Ben Nevis, and I thought I'll just go for a little tiny walk and see where it takes me. And then I kept walking and walking and walking and walking, and finally I got to the top. But like other people, when they go to Ben Nevis, like you have to tell someone where you're going, what route you're taking. Do you have waterproofs? Do you have extra food? It's just so when I listen to this story, I always think, oh my goodness, I was so young and I just went for a walk and then spent the whole day there. But it's the sort of thing, just I wouldn't do that again. This is the next time I would definitely tell people and go better prepared and have water and extra food. Anyway, last exercise. And because we're talking about dreaming into being, I would like just to get a tiny, tiny little, I suppose it's a visualization exercise. So perhaps again, just if you feel the need to close your eyes or whatever. And to go to the island of Skye, there's a bridge you can cross. So I would just like to invite you to imagine that you're just walking across the bridge to Skye. You're passing by the sea and the seals. On the other side, it's lush. There's the mountains. There's a fairy pool somewhere. But I just want you to imagine that you are actually sitting next to that little pool of life in the story. And the old man is inviting you to put your hand into the pool of life and to take a little bit of that soft cheese, the crowdie, and just start shaping it in your hands. What is the dream that you would like to dream into being at this moment, for the future, for whatever's important for you? What is the dream that you would like to dream into being? Basically, if you can actually move your hands and shape it. How big is it? What color is it? Are there other people in that dream? Is it a dream that you'll hold in your right hand so that it will bring more happy, peaceful, romantic adventures or whatever? Or is it a dream you want to hold in your left hand, which is more about the nightmare? What is the dream you would like to bring into the world for you? Or it could be for other people. You could have two, one for you and one for Mother Earth. And when you can see that dream and feel it, again, I'll just give you a few minutes, just maybe 4 minutes, just to either sketch it or write it, just whatever feels good for you. What would you like to dream into being for you and or for Mother Earth? And it is a dream, so it can be as big as you want it to be. Two more minutes. And yet again, it'd be lovely if you could put a title to your dream. Really do dream it into being and give it a title. Mm. 20 seconds more. Mhm. And if you'd like to share the title of your dream in the chat, that would be lovely. Folklore goes electric. That is never heard that one before, Eric. Would you like to explain, Eric, or will you just leave us with the enigma?
Well, it's an homage to Bob Dylan Goes Electric, which happened
Okay.
at the 1965 Newport Folk Festival when he played with a rock band when people were expecting just him and a guitar.
Oh,
That was Folk Music Goes Electric.
yeah,
And
yeah.
actually, I'm editing a book titled Folklore Goes Electric about how both folk artists and scholars are using electronic technology in relation to folklore. Uh, but it's larger than that. I've written a movie which I'm trying to produce. The last 10 minutes of it is a global Zoom art painting dance party where people are painting electronically with each other. And I did that kind of work in nightclubs years ago, and I've been contacted recently by someone who I used to do it with, who he wants us to do a podcast about it and about partying in general, the anthropology of partying. So
Where does Eric find the time? Just
the common denominator is taking the expressive arts and going electric with it.
Yeah, yeah. Eric, you're always a surprise.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eric. I think Rachel would like to share as well. Is that right, Rachel? I think you've got your hand up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so Kol ha'olam hi gesher tsar ma'od, v'ha'ikar hi lo lefached. All of the world is a very narrow bridge, and the important thing is not to fear. That's a Hebrew saying. And the image I had was a black bridge over darkness, all of the terror and the despair and the worst nightmares of the world. And that thin, scary bridge. And I then you said, go into the image of the story. And and I saw the old man dipping his hands into the water. And I dipped my hand into the water. And all of a sudden, I was a muscular antelope, so strong and so powerful, leaping over the world. And that dark black bridge dissolved into nothingness and vanished. And there was a beautiful bridge. And the world was actually probably a little bit more like the 1950s. It was a, the a world of the present reality simplified with bright sunshine and blue sky, nature and cities, all as they were supposed to be.
I'm feeling quite tearful about that dream. What a powerful dream, my goodness. Oh, I don't know at this moment the symbology around the antelope. In our story, it was deer, and deer are often associated, well, in my culture, with like unconditional love.
And this was, I often relate to a doe with big eyes, but this was a muscular male antelope surveying the world on top of it, powerful, with, I guess, control of its body, control of itself, and just power.
Yeah.
I
In a
was,
positive sense, power, yeah, not power as in power over, rather
no,
than
but
power.
coming from its muscular strength, from health and vibrancy. And I was surprised that it was leaping over the world. It didn't go down into the world, there wasn't contact, but everything about the world was peaceful and the way it should be.
Lovely,
And
beautiful.
there was, and the bridge was a positive, glowing bridge. It was no longer doom and
Beautiful.
gloom and terror. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for bringing that. And again, there's no doubt that there is some darkness in the world at the moment, but the only thing that can conquer darkness is the light. So beautiful. What a beautiful image. Thank you so much. Mm.
And
Anyone else? Yes, Raquel?
I was surprised how it called upon my Hebrew Jewish
Yeah.
background, that song that came to mind.
Yeah, is the antelope, do you have any
Um,
mention of that in the
no, that didn't resonate at the time,
yeah, at the
in
time,
terms of the
yeah.
Jewish symbology.
Yeah. And you really felt the need to bring the Hebrew language. It
Oh
came
yeah,
out
it is
really
as soon as
spontaneously.
it
Mm,
right away that song came to my mind.
Thank you. Yeah, and I liked what you said as well about the way things should be, like nature in cities, just like back to this symbol. We seem to have complicated things quite a lot. Yeah, that's just such a lovely image. What else did you say as well? The peaceful, glowing, and nature.
Thank
Hmm,
you. Well, thank
Thank,
you.
thank you very much. That is one of the biggest, stronger members of the deer family. So the deer did come up. Thank you so much, Eric. I had a feeling it was of the deer family, but I wasn't 100% sure. So like the deer have come to the rescue, but it wasn't like the doe deer with their milk. Here it was a much stronger, faster, powerful deer that could bring what was needed. Well, am I aware it's the last 3 minutes? It's really gone very, very fast. Yeah, I'd love to have talked about the symbolism of the story, but it just we seem to have just gone elsewhere. Normally I make a space for the symbolism, but I don't know if you want to add anything, Eric. Definitely the unconditional love of the deer being from the more than human world. I like the idea of you get the herbs and the milk and you mix them together. And it's like this what's the word? It's like alchemy to make dreams, but it comes from the very natural world as well. I'll see if I can. Anything else you can think of, Eric? I wrote a few things down. Mm. And the pool of life. I mean, there's just such beautiful images. Sometimes I don't even want to go into the symbolism. They're just so lovely, isn't it? The pool of life. And like to shape dreams and mm, I think really that's a bit it really. Certainly the time reference really touched me in terms of again a year and a night or a year and a day. And just about just putting things in pause, just being calm, observing. All this is part of the symbolic language as well, isn't it? Mm. Field of dreams, peace, contentment. Oh, lovely words coming up. If any words come up with like how you're feeling now, just please put them in the chat. We started off simply talking about what's our favorite fruit. And normally when I do a workshop, it's 2 hours, so there is quite a bit longer to get into the symbolic language. I'm sorry we didn't go there today, but for me, it's just being a really sort of like intimate gathering. I just feel that, through one short story, ancient Scottish story, all of a sudden I've found out a little bit more about some of where it resonated, whether it's past or present. We've talked about moments when we've got lost, and obviously you're not, you managed to get out of here, and also just talking about the dreams that you would like to bring into being. So I think that's it for now. I'll just let you know I actually do a year long, it's called the Fairy Tale Journey, and it lasts for a year and a day, not a year and a night, a year and a day. And it's starting in March the 9th, it starts up again. So, is it okay if I write my webpage here, just in case anyone's interested,
Of course,
Eric?
of course.
Even though it's on all your publicity and things, it's just called storyarte.com. You'd find it there on the agenda. So thank you ever so much. And I think we've made up time, yeah, Eric?
Yes, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Mm.
The
Thank
six
you.
of us have our cameras on. There are seven more who are camera off, who I'm sure they also enjoyed it. And we have the recording, which I'll stop right now.